name is Sasha Badillo, and I'm the Product Development Manager here at Temptu. Now, I'm actually really excited for today's Facebook Live because we're going to be doing something a bit different. We're actually going to be showing you guys how to incorporate Temptu in your makeup kit. Now, before we get started, I actually wanted to mention, before I started out at Product Development with Temptu, I started out as a makeup artist. And what I'm really excited about for today's Facebook Live is I'm going to be talking to you guys as makeup artists who are trying to understand how to incorporate Temptu in your kit. Now, I know Airbrush can be a bit intimidating, so I'm going to be showing you guys what's inside of my kit and how I actually bring in Temptu, whether it's Airbrush or hand applied. So I'm really excited, and before we get started, I'm going to actually show you guys what's in my kit. So I got this kit on Amazon. I know makeup artists usually have a Zuka kit, but I find that it's just really heavy, and being a city girl, I just cannot carry a kit on the train with me all the time. So I find this to be a lot compact, and also too, this allows me to really understand what essential key products I need, and I find that when I'm incorporating Temptu, whether it's Airbrush or by bottles, it just makes it much easier to carry so little. So in here I have my disposable kit. So I'm just going to open this up for you guys. I have here Q-tips, lip brushes, mascara wands, just your traditional disposables. And I have it all organized here so that it's not in the way. And then in here I just have a brush cleaner, let's actually open this up, my Art palette. And I have a couple other disposables, makeup removers, and blocking sheets. Now in here, this is where it gets exciting because I love an organized kit. So in here you'll see that I have 2 Temptu Airs. I kind of like to have more than one so that I have one always charging and then another one that I'm using for my makeup demonstration. I have here my pods. Now what's great about this setup is that these are actually movable. So you can actually set up your kit exactly how you want. So I've set it up so that I can be able to carry not only my bottles but also my pods. I'm just going to slide that right here. So I have a couple of pods. I also have my Perfect Canvas in bottles. I have sections here where for our 1 ounce bottles. I have my skincare here, some Temptu lipsticks and stencils, a few brushes, my mascaras and concealers, as well as other couple products in here. Then here I have my brushes. So I'm going to be showing you guys how you can be able to incorporate Temptu whether you are using a beauty blender, a brush, or the ultimate tool, your airbrush. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually have our lovely model, Larissa, come over here.
Hi guys.
Great. Now, I've pulled her hair back so that it's out of the face, and that way you guys can really see what I'm doing. I'm going to prep the skin first with some skincare. So I'm just going to grab a little bit of eye cream. And I'm taking a spatula knife, applying it with a small brush. Okay, look up for me. I'm just applying just a little. And I want her skin to kind of glow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually add a little bit of a new product that we'll be launching in February into her skincare. And I'm just mixing this straight into the moisturizer. So again, just going to grab a little bit of moisturizer. You don't need a lot. Okay. I'm just going to add 1 or 2 drops right into the moisturizer. And again, I'm just going to mix this directly in. I'm going to take a dual fiber brush. I'm just going to blend that right into the skin. I always like to start with skin and then work my way into the eyes so that I can allow the skin to really absorb any of the skincare products. And then I go into cleaning up the complexion. So already you guys see her skin looks very, very moisturized. Now I'm going to do a kind of under/over technique. So I am mixing this glowing product into our moisturizer underneath the skin so that you guys can see how it would look after I put some foundation. And then I'll even put it on top in certain areas where I really want it to be really luminous. Okay. Okay. So close your eyes for a second. So anytime you airbrush eyes, I like to tap out any natural oils on the lids. And I will grab a little bit of powder with a brush. This is kind of like a setting powder. This would just allow the airbrush on the eyes to really set. So this has no eyeshadow, just setting powder, just so that it takes away any of the natural oils. And this helps just really give a seamless look. So you see, guys, immediately with powder and no powder, there is still some moisture there, but this will allow for the product to really set into the eyes. Okay. Now, I have here my AirPod Pro. Now, as you see, this is a brand new AirPod Pro, so I'm going to actually show you guys really quickly how to actually prep an AirPod Pro. And you want to do this the first time. So what you want to do is you want to take off the tamper seal right in the front of the tip where the needle goes. And you're going to remove the cap on top as well as the chrome cap in the back. Now, if you guys never seen an AirPod Pro, what's really unique about this is that it actually has an open top on, it has an open top bead. So this is kind of like a single action airbrush gun because it has continuous air. Before I go ahead and use it, I'm going to take a drop or two of the SB cleaner. And this is going to lubricate the needle so that it ensures that makeup sprays seamlessly. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull the clear loop right here, and this is just going to loosen the needle. So you see when I first pulled it, it had some pressure. Once I pull it a second time, it'll be much easier. I'm going to connect this to the air, so I'm going to press the release button, turn this on, and you want to make sure that any of the cleaner you spray out before you put any product inside of the AirPod Pro, so that way it doesn't affect the finish. So I'm going to turn this on, and I'm just going to spray out the cleaner. Okay, turn that off for a second.
Do you like to use an eyeshadow primer?
I personally don't. I don't like to use an eyeshadow primer. I find that it's easier to just powder the eyes before you're airbrushing so that it seals the natural oils. The primer, I feel like it's just another layer on the lids. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take our air shadow in citrine. And I'm going to drop this right in the inner well. So if you see here, there's two sections of the AirPod Pro. I'm going to get actually a little bit closer so you guys can see. So there's the well, but you really want to make sure that you're putting product in the inner well, right over here, which is where it's closest to the needle. This is going to allow you to use less product. So I'm going to put a few drops, like 3 drops. Turn this on, and since we're going on the eyes, I'm going to have it on speed setting 1. You always want to, again, make sure you spray on your hand first, just to make sure there is no residue from the SB cleaner. And also a tip too is I like to kind of spray through 99% alcohol. Okay, so close your eyes. I'm going to turn you this way. And I'm just doing this on the brow bone and very, very little on the lid. Okay. Now, I'm going to add a little bit of color onto the lid. Instead of washing through the color, the citrine that I have here in the AirPod Pro, I'm actually going to mix directly Tiger's Eye and kind of make almost like my own little color. Okay, so a few drops. Grabbing my AirPod Pro brush, and I'm just going to mix this directly in the inner well. And I'm going to just test this on my hand to make sure this is a good color. Okay, that's a good one. Okay,
So it's tiger's eye and what else?
Tiger's eye and the leftover of citrine that I used on her brow bone. So again, you want to make sure that you spray this on your hand first, just to make sure that you see the mixed color. So as you see here, I'm still getting some citrine. So if that happens, you just want to mix it just a little bit more until you see the color showing. Okay, and I'm going to add a little bit more of the tiger's eye. There we go. Okay. So just close. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take our brow shaper and I'm going to just cover her lashes so that it doesn't airbrush her lash. Okay, so just a little bit of color on the lids. Actually, let's bring it up a little bit more. Close your eyes for me. And also make sure that when you're airbrushing the eyes that you have your model keep her eyes closed for the duration of you airbrushing, so that way you give it time to set. There you go. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to let that set for a bit, and I want to actually start tackling on a little of the redness. So this is the color corrector in yellow, and I'm just going to add just a little bit. And you want to make sure that when you're using our color correctors, you don't want to completely cover any of the discoloration. You want to actually just neutralize it, because the foundation is really going to be the part that does the work. So you see I'm just kind of neutralizing a little bit of the redness before I go ahead and put on the foundation. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab her foundation color. And I'm going to take a traditional brush, and I just want to actually see how this would look. So again, you can apply this with a brush or with a sponge. So with a beauty blender, actually pour the product directly onto the beauty blender, and I kind of just tap it in a bouncing motion and go over the skin. Now, if you wanted more coverage, so a beauty blender is going to be a bit more of a sheer coverage. If you wanted more coverage, then I would say opt for the brush. If you are trying to figure out, do you really like the formula, but honestly, I feel like with Airbrush, it simplifies your kit because you're not carrying so many brushes. So I just want to show you guys the difference between sponge, brush, and Airbrush.
What color and formula are you applying right now?
I'm using the Perfect Canvas in shade Birch, which is 3.5. And I'm just tapping that on. So for those who are looking into adding Temptu, but you don't want to invest immediately in the Airbrush system, I say regardless, try our formula. We have it in 1/4 ounce bottles, in 1 ounce bottles, and this gives you a sense of how the formula is. Because I know as makeup artists, you don't want to feel like, well, I've invested so much in my kit and I have all these foundations and concealers, what do I do with them? Well, with this, if you wanted to test this, you can get, just one of the small 1/4 ounce bottles, and you can apply it with a sponge or with a brush to see if you like the formula. From there, you'll know that obviously when you airbrush it, you're going to have a much nicer effect. So you see here, I've only done the Beauty Blender on the chin, so it's still sheer. You still see the redness a little bit. With the brush, it gives you a bit more coverage, and then on the other side, I'll do it airbrush. So I'm actually going to go ahead and I'm going to grab another AirPod Pro because I want to mix her color a little bit. And this one's already prepped, so I'm just throwing this in here. And I'm taking her color directly, which I put somewhere, but now I can't find, which always happens to us makeup artists. All right, 3.5, there we go. Okay, so I'm just, again, pouring it directly into the inner well. And then also a trick too, since we do have a mixing ball inside of the bottle, you want to actually make sure you're putting it at an angle. If you put it directly straight on, you'll find that the ball gets stuck on the tip and you'll feel like you're not getting any product in. So I always say to do it in an angle. Okay, and I actually want to brighten the skin a little bit. So I'm going to add and mix in our lavender. And this is going to brighten the skin. And again, just 1 or 2 drops. Okay. And I'm going to mix this with our brush. Again, still on speed setting 2. There we go. And then turn this way. Close your eyes for me. Now, for those who feel like when I airbrush, I'm not really getting as much of full coverage as I want, what I like to do also too is I actually like to put on concealer first in the areas where you need it, and I'll beauty blend or use a brush depending on what you prefer.
What concealer are you using there and what shade?
So the concealer that I'm using is the Armani in shade 3. And I'm taking a beauty blender and I'm just kind of buffing that in. And again, in bouncing motions. And then I feel like I still see a little bit of that darkness. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab our corrector in light peach. And we have this in pod or bottle. I'm going to test this on my skin and on speed setting 1. Close your eyes for me. I'm going to take the shaper again so I can lift the lash right here and just apply just a little bit of the corrector right on the inner corner. Yes, in light peach. So you guys see right there how I've added a little bit of a light peach on top of the concealer, and it kind of just cleaned up and also neutralized the darkness. Now I'm going to go right back into my foundation pod. And I feel like when I add a little bit of the concealer and I brought it down, when you airbrush the foundation on top, it seals the makeup, so it's almost like a setting spray. And then also too, it gives you more coverage. So for those who have tested the Perfect Canvas and you feel like it's not giving you full coverage, I say take a little bit of your traditional concealer, apply it to your skin, and then if you want to hide some of the darkness, you can grab our corrector, or you can just use the foundation directly. So you guys see here how with an airbrush, I kind of get a more seamless finish. It also, I feel like, covers a bit more because you have control of how much coverage you want. With the Beauty Blender, which I want to cover a little bit more, it gives you more of a sheer finish. But again, if I wanted to do a sheer finish, it's just a matter of how much layers I apply with the airbrush. So you kind of have a Beauty Blender brush and an airbrush all in one with the Temptu Air. It's just a matter of how much coverage you put. Then with the brush, you also still get some good coverage. And I'm just going to add a little bit of foundation. So you guys hear that sound? It's kind of loud. When you hear that sound, that means that the AirPod Pro is empty. So I find that when you start to play around with the Temptu Air, you'll get used to certain sounds that your pod makes.
Let's just see her split face for a second.
Sure.
Because you can really see the difference between the airbrush and the traditional brush application.
I'm actually going to bring this down on the neck a little. And then I'm going to just go ahead and I'm going to finish on this side. And you want to make sure that you always airbrush the ears so that it all connects, you don't have floating ears. And you see, I've put the moisturizer on first. Remember, if our new product is coming out in February, and it really gives a glowing skin. So although Perfect Canvas is a semi-matte formula, if you are more used to our Silk Sphere formula or our SB formula, you can still achieve that glow with the add-on goodies such as long wear, transfer resistant, and water resistant, and still get that effect if you mix it underneath. Okay, I'm just going to add a little bit more coverage. And I'm going to add the concealer underneath so that it matches. And then we'll airbrush a little bit of the corrector.
Are you going to use the new Perfect Canvas bronzer and contour today, Sasha?
Yes.
Because there's a couple of questions about working with it on fair or fair to medium skin, so that would be great if you use that today.
So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab our light peach color corrector just so I can match what I did here. Again, lifting the lashes and just applying just a little bit right here just to cover that darkness. Okay. Now that the skin has a good canvas, I'm going to actually apply a little bit more on the eyes. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab my AirPod Pro again. And I'm going to spray out the product that I have. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to just take a makeup remover, wipe my hand since I kind of like to use this as my palette and I want to make sure that it's still pretty clean. And I'm just going to use the makeup remover to spray out any excess. I'm going to take our SB cleaner and just spray it directly into the inner well. Take our brush and clean thoroughly. Now again, you can use the SB cleaner or you can use our 99% alcohol. Now we do have a cleaning pot so that you don't have any of that residue spraying into the air. Okay. So I kind of want to darken a little bit of the crease. And I'll actually jump in with our bronzer because you can use it in a lot of different ways. I'm going to test this on my hand. Take my shield again, turn this way, close your eyes. Okay. I'm just going to apply just a little onto the lid and just bronze up the eyes a little bit. Okay. Keep your eyes closed. Okay. Now, although Larissa is very fair and the bronzer seems a little dark, what you can actually do is you can either apply very lightly, and I'm going to go around the perimeters of her face. So you see here it's super, super sheer, but if you find that if it's still too dark, what you can do is you can actually apply foundation on top. So I'm just going to turn her around. And again, as you see, I'm still going in small circular motions.
There's a request to address the other side of her nose with a little foundation.
Sure.
We've got a team helping you today.
So let's go ahead and jump back into the pod that has a little bit of her foundation. Turn this way. Okay. So let's say I've added the contour and it seems a little too dark. You can honestly just airbrush right on top, and it kind of gives a more natural contour, if anything, because it looks like it's coming from underneath the skin. So you guys see there? Now I'm going to kind of highlight. Now a lot of people say, you know, if you've airbrushed the skin, can you apply other things on top? Yes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply highlighter with a brush, and then I'll also airbrush it so you guys can see the effect. Okay. So I'm going to take a little bit of a limited edition highlighter, and I'm going to apply this with a brush. And then if you wanted to even shear it out even more, you could take a beauty blender and just blend it right into the skin. Now with airbrush, I find that I get a nicer finish. Close your eyes. And it just looks like it's coming from within or underneath the skin, if anything, where here it's just like highlight. Now you can still apply our highlighters with a brush or with a sponge, but I find that it gives a little bit of a different effect. So you guys see here? Okay, and then turning this way. So this I feel like gives a glow. It's more softer, so it's a nice glow, where here it's more of like a highlight. Because of course when you're applying it with a brush, you're going to get more pigment level. And again, if I wanted to add more glow and more highlight, I could again apply another layer on top to really get that to shine. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my AirPod Pro again. I have some foundation here, so I'm not going to dump most of it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually make a custom blush. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab our Jasper, and this is again still on the Perfect Canvas. And I'm going to add a few drops of Jasper. And so that way you guys can see the swatch of Jasper on its own. So it's kind of like a brownish color, and I'm going to mix this with our Venetian Rose, which on its own. And what I like about the AirPod Pro is that it allows me to be more creative because I can mix. So with Venetian Rose on its own and with Jasper on its own, I find that it's really bright. But when you mix the two, and again, you can add the different layers. When you mix the two, it's not as bright, and you kind of get almost like a nice soft peach or like a nudish pink. So it allows you to kind of create your own colors. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to mix that directly in. I've already added the Jasper, so I'm going to add a few drops of the Venetian Rose into the AirPod Pro. And I'm going to mix that with our brush. And I'm going to apply that on my skin. So you see here, it's a nice soft pinkish color, not so dark. Okay. So again, you want to make sure that you're spreading it on your hand first to make sure that the color runs through. I'm just going to mix it a little bit more. Okay. Alright, so there's our color. So you see it's nice, almost like a neutral shade. And you only need very little. Our Perfect Canvas blushes, they're very pigmented, so you only want to apply just a light layer and just build the coverage. So you see how I've only really gone maybe 1 or 2 passes very quickly. And again, if you still find that the blush is too dark, you can again take your foundation and just apply it right on top to soften it. Okay. Now I'm going to go and jump back onto the eyes.
What highlighter did you use?
I used, on this side right here, I used our Pink Pearl, and then on this side I actually used our Cosmos from the BoxyCharm limited edition. Okay, I actually want to bump up the eyes, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab our rose gold in a pod. Again on speed setting 1. Okay, turn this way. Again, covering. Actually, turn it a little this way. Sorry. There you go. So just a little bit of color. See now, I feel like it looks really good with that bronzer that we added there. Okay, now I'm going to do the other side. There you go. And if I even wanted to bump up the crease, I can go right back into our air shadow color and grab an AIRPOD Pro that's clean. If I can find one, let's see. Okay. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bump up the crease color with graphite. You want to make sure you always give these guys a good shake. And just so you guys can see the color right there. I'm going to put that directly in the AIRPOD Pro. And I still have a little bit of the heather stone in here, so it'll be a nice little transition. Okay. And I'm going to just mix this right directly in. There we go. Okay. So again, taking the shield. You guys see here the difference? So I've just bumped it up a little. I made a nice little crease color. And a little bit more here.
And what's your crease color?
This is graphite and Perfect Canvas. Air shadows. Okay, open the eyes for me. And look directly into the camera. There you go. Okay, now I'm going to add a little bit of liner underneath the eyes. And I'm going to apply this directly onto my hand. And get a bit of a brush. Okay, look up. Okay, turn this way. And this is the same color as the graphite. And if I even wanted to, I can even airbrush graphite directly onto the brush. I'm going to apply it. There you go. Let's add a little.
Christiane is loving the graphite.
You can definitely use it in a lot of different ways, which I like because, you know, if you want to show it off. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit of pink pearl in the inner corners of her eyes. Okay, close your eyes. And I'm kind of sweeping this into the lid to kind of connect the look. And then even bump up the center. There you go. Let's add a little bit on the Cupid's bow. Let's do a little, let's see, maybe rose velveteen, too pink. Something soft. Blush suede, okay. Okay, buff nectar. Let's add a little bit of buff nectar onto her lips. Okay, like that. Just add a little bit of color. Okay, why don't we get into the brows? So we have a couple different stencils. For those that are doing it at home or want more of a rounded effect, I say that our round stencils are kind of really good. So this has, again, the same stencil that you can be able to block the lashes, or if you wanted more of a natural effect and not so stenciled, you can be able to use this for a rounded look or more of an arch. And then if you wanted more of a more defined brow, you can kind of use that one. And then what I like too is that if you want to get really creative, you can be able to actually use this. I'll actually use a skinnier tip for a winged liner. So let's see. Let's do this stencil. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to switch over to my brow color.
So which stencil?
I'm going to be using the Dolce Vita from our Pro Brow Set. So I'm going to actually, before I go ahead and stencil the brow, I'm going to airbrush directly onto our dual-ended brow brush. And I'm going to kind of comb through her brows with the pigment directly on. And if you wanted to, you can even do the hair strokes with the same formula for a more natural look. So if you didn't want to use the stencils, you can still use the formula. And apply it by hand.
Sasha, we have a question about how well Airbrush covers acne.
So I find that what's great about Airbrush is that because you're not using your hands, you're not using all these other products, it's more hypoenergetic. Like I showed in the very beginning, if you feel like you're not getting the amount of coverage that you want, if you add a little bit of concealer in those areas and then airbrush on top and build the coverage, you'll be able to actually cover the acne. And again, remember, you can only cover color as opposed to texture. Okay. So I'm using the stencil here. And then for the front of the brow, I want it to be a bit more natural looking. So I'm gonna actually spray onto the brush and comb it through. And then if you wanted to, you can actually bring the brush up for a more natural effect. So you guys see here the before and after? Okay. So before you go ahead and you do it on the other side, you want to make sure that you wipe the stencil so that you don't go ahead, because you're going to flip the stencil over. You want to make sure that you wipe the stencil with a makeup remover or with a napkin, so that way you don't actually apply that color onto her lid. And while we wait for that to dry, I'll also clean my hand palette. Okay. Now again, I'm going to, and now as you see here, I'm not really laying the stencil right onto her skin. If you lay the stencil directly onto the skin, can you actually hold this for me? I'm going to apply it onto my hand, so lay it really tight. If you lay it directly into the skin, it just looks too harsh. Where if you lay it slowly over the skin, and you just apply lightly, you get a more softer look. Now, again, I always like to start at the end of the brow, so that way I see where my arch is going to be. Okay, let me see here. And then again, the front part, I don't want it to be too harsh. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm just going to comb the front through, and I've sprayed on the brow color on the back of the stencil and also in the front of the brush, and I'm just going to stroke up the product and then right into the brow. Okay, go ahead and look at me. Okay. Now to finish off the look, I'll go ahead and I'll apply some mascara, but before I go ahead and do that, I want you guys to really focus on Larissa right here. And Larissa, if you can you just kind of go and show off the look?
Of course.
That way I can go ahead and grab my disposables.
Sasha, there was a question about back bubbling. Do you prefer to mix with your brush inside the little well of the AirPod Pro?
Yes. So I personally do not back bubble in the AirPod Pro to mix product. If anything, the only time I ever back bubble is when I'm cleaning and I'm putting cleaning solution into the AirPod Pro. I actually prefer and find that I get a cleaner color and also a cleaner pod when I'm applying when I'm using the brush to actually mix the color in. Okay. Now I'm going to be taking some mascara. Let's actually curl her lashes. So you guys see how with my kit, everything's organized. I can work directly out of my kit, so if you're in a confined space or they only give you, a really tight space, that's fine. You don't need a lot of table space. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to curl the lashes. So actually look right here at my shoulder. Yep. Okay. And again. There you go. Okay. Now I am going to be using my mascara brush. So I actually have a makeup brush then I can actually go ahead and look down a little bit. Apply the mascara directly. And this allows me to get really closer into the roots. There's actually a mascara from Mud that I like because it's actually in a tube form, so you can actually push the mascara out from the tube onto a palette. And I do use a traditional mascara wand, which I'm going to go ahead and do right now. Okay. If you guys have any other questions too, now would be the time.
You might want to give a shout out to, we've got visitors from India on this Facebook Live.
Hey India. Hi everybody.
Tanya joined us, Tanya Deemer. Give her a shout out.
Okay, go ahead and look down for a second. I'm going to use a clean mascara wand to kind of brush through so that way it doesn't get clumpy. So I always like to have two mascara disposables. One that actually has the mascara on, and then also one that's pretty clean, so that way I can be able to brush through. Okay. And then also too, if I wanted to kind of give a little bit of a little bit lower, if I wanted to be able to give a little bit of a lash tint, you can actually take our root concealer pod or bottle and actually spray it onto the lashes. So I'll show you guys really quickly what I mean by that. Again, I'm going to be using the brow shaper. Go ahead and look down for me. And she's going to lay her lashes onto the shaper. And I'm going to airbrush directly on. You want to make sure it's on speed setting 1 so it's a bit more comfortable for your client. And you want to make sure that you get this right there. Go ahead. I'm just going to take my brush again. Go ahead and look up for me. I'm just going to apply just a little bit onto the bottom. Okay, so let's see. I feel like she looks very glowing. Let's actually add a little bit of something. Pink pearl onto your cupid bow and also onto the lips, so that way she glows a little bit more. And bring it down. So here is our final look. Just to give a bit of a run through, although this is perfect canvas and it is a semi-matte formula, I really wanted to give glowing skin. So what I did is I actually mixed directly into her moisturizer, one of our new products that really gives luminosity to the skin, and I put that underneath her skin first, and then I've applied our corrector and removed any discoloration and redness on her skin. I've then applied with a beauty blender, with a brush, and also with Airbrush, our Perfect Canvas foundation, so you guys can kind of see a little bit of the different finishes. I've used our corrector. I've used her corrector on the bottom of her eyes, so that way I can hide a little bit of the darkness. I've taken our bronzer and contour pod, and I've contoured around her cheekbone area, brought it up into the forehead, and I've even applied it a little bit on her eyes. On her eyes is our rose gold highlighter right on the lid, and I've added a little bit of tiger's eye, heatherstone, and also graphite onto the crease. And then to give that a little bit more of a shine, what I did was I take the same highlighter, the Pink Pearl highlighter, and I applied it directly on the middle of her eyes as well as the inner corner of her eyes, and really gave that more of like a rosy gold smoky eye. I've also taken our Dolce Vita brow stencil, and I've kind of defined the brows. On her lips is our buffed nectar lipstick with a little bit of pink pearl in the center to kind of give a little bit of a plumpy look, and then also on the Cupid's bow. So I hope you guys enjoyed this Facebook Live and you've had a nice time looking at the different techniques. And I really hope that you guys, decide to incorporate Temptu in your kit, whether it's by sponge, by brush, or an airbrush effect, and just really get a chance to be able to test our formula. So thank you guys. Bye.
Bye.